Welcome to Around Kansas. I'm Deb Goodrich.
And I'm Michelle Martin.
And behind me, the iconic photo of Bob Dole and Norm Macdonald, the late Norm Macdonald, who satirized Bob Dole on Saturday Night Live. And Bob Dole, with the sense of humor that he had, thought it was hilarious. And when Norm Macdonald passed away, Bob Dole shared on social media, Bob Dole will miss Norm Macdonald, because they were always teasing about how Bob Dole referred to himself in the third person, and that was part of Norm Macdonald's shtick in doing Dole. And of course, the state and the nation have been saying goodbye to one of Kansas' most famous and most beloved sons this month. So we wanted to take just a few minutes to pay tribute to former Senator Bob Dole.
You know, Deb, not being like you, being a transplant to Kansas, there's certain things you learn or that you hear about Kansas before you move there. And I selected an image of a great Kansas sunset because we have those horizons that go on
Mhm.
forever. And it makes me think of Bob Dole because when I moved to Kansas, he was still actively involved. He was still a politician who was actively involved in political life. And I thought, well, surely Bob Dole will always be a part of Kansas's political life and American national political life. And not to mention also the fact that he was a World War II veteran and served our country wearing our nation's uniform of the armed forces, was in the military, served with great distinction, was wounded and carried that wound with him for the rest of his life. And I think we cannot overstate the debt of gratitude that all Americans owe to Bob Dole, regardless of your political party or affiliation, regardless of whether you were on the receiving end. He could have a very sharp, biting tongue. He was a really hard hitting politician, but as a man who stepped up when our nation uh, called young men to arms. He answered that call and served our nation with honor and distinction in the armed forces. And so, for that, every American, regardless of your political affiliation, owes the late Senator Dole a huge debt of gratitude.
Well, as a veteran, of course, one of the most moving images of my lifetime, I think, was when the former senator stood uh, to salute the coffin of George H.W. Bush, a fellow World War II veteran. And when he uh, there in the rotunda of the Capitol, and I can remember, um, you know, Bob Dole has been in a wheelchair for a while now, and when they wheeled him in, and there was this murmuring, they could see his sort of shuffling. They're like, what's he doing? And then just silence.
Yeah, it was incredibly moving, and I think for me, because I had not seen any images of Senator Dole for some time, it was also very jarring to see his physical condition that day, and you could tell that he was, far weaker and more frail than I had ever
Yeah,
remembered seeing him. And for him to take that effort,
yeah.
because to muster up that physical strength to stand and salute the casket of our former president, also a World War II veteran, I'm sure that took every single ounce of his physical and emotional strength that he had within him.
I'm sure.
And and that's, um there's so many who've been writing and talking about Senator Dole since his passing, and not all of the writing and the commentary and the reflection have been good. And I still have to say that one thing is important to remember: even though he was a very staunch Republican, the one thing he did understand was country before party, country before politics. and he was very good and adept at reaching across the aisle and trying to find avenues for discussion and consensus building, and but discussion that was not nasty and vitriolic. It may have been spirited, it may have, it may have been very spirited and animated, but it was not completely at the level that we see today. And so
So
I
Bob's Bob's sense of humor, oh my goodness, a wicked sense of
mhm,
humor. And of course,
yes.
President Biden shared the story about how Dole was the only Republican to vote for Amtrak, and they asked him why. And he said, because Joe Biden takes it out of Washington every night. And if we can just get Joe Biden out of Washington. And then, of course, famously, the senator had written a letter to the American people that his daughter Robin read at the services there in the rotunda. And it was a very moving letter, so typical of Bob Dole, um, expressing his faith that he knew God would be with him. And he couldn't, he was very curious to see if heaven was really like Kansas, and if so many like who had passed before him, if he would still be able to vote in Chicago. And it was and there said, of course, all his Democratic adversaries, President Clinton, who was his uh,
Mhm.
ran against for the
Yeah.
presidency, and so Dole got the last laugh. I mean, that's
Yes, he did.
bless his
You
heart.
know, Deb, I had the opportunity to attend an event at the Dole Center at the campus at the University of Kansas in Lawrence, and I did not know that the senator was going to actually be at that event, and so it was. I can't even remember what the event is anymore, but isn't that terrible? But I know I was when I was working for Bill Curtis, and Bill was on stage, and I think he was moderating. It was a debate of some kind, but Senator Dole was there, and he so many students and faculty and members of the public. It didn't matter whether they were Democrat or Republican. Everyone wanted to go up and meet him, and we were in kind of their green room area behind stage, and he came back behind stage, and he and Bill traded jokes with each other and had good laughs together, and um, but it was very humbling, but it was very interesting to meet him and to get a chance to watch him interact with people and to see that sense of humor and that wit on full display. And he really you can see why he is really one of Kansas' favorite sons. And so I know that my thoughts have been with his family, his wife Elizabeth, who had served as the national chairperson of the Red Cross. She herself
And the U.S.
ran
Senator
for
from North
office.
Carolina.
Yes, and ran for office in North Carolina.
She
And
was a
so,
U.S. Senator from North Carolina.
yes, and so she herself put her toes in the political arena.
Yeah.
I have to say, one of the images that was very moving this week from uh, his body was in state in Washington, D.C., there, and it was just so moving. The picture of Senator Elizabeth Dole when she walked up and bent down and put her hands on the casket and kissed the casket. It was just very, very moving. And it reminds me, and I think we all should remember, um, our politicians, our public servants, whether you agree or disagree with them, at the end of the day, they're human beings and they
Mhm.
have families and they have people who love them. And they love others. And so they're in that respect, they're just like the rest of us. And so um, we extend our deepest and sincerest sympathies to the Dole family, to the residents of his hometown. My goodness, his hometown is just reeling from that as well. You know, uh, Russell's so proud of being Bob Dole's hometown. When you drive in, the signs are there, and
Yeah.
so We're thinking of all of our friends in Russell as well.
That's right. I have to um, say, there's uh, they unveiled a sculpture of Bob Dole not too long ago on Washburn University. Makes me very proud to be an Ichabod. That Bob Dole is also a graduate of Washburn. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, um, just such an outpouring of love for Senator Dole and his family. And he is only the second Kansan to lie in state in the U.S. Capitol. I think there have only been 33 in all. And of course, Ike was the first, and
Mhm.
Senator Dole is the second. So, and a tremendous honor. And then, of course, also at the state capitol in Topeka before his body was taken back to Washington to be buried. So, um, he leaves an incredible legacy. You mentioned the Dole Center
Mhm.
for Politics at the KU campus, a tremendous resource and research facility, and um, he's there's barely an inch of Kansas he hasn't touched, barely a inch of
Mhm.
America he hasn't had an impact on. So, um, Senator, you will be missed. We'll be right back.
In 1821, a trade route was opened from Missouri in the United States across prairies and mountains to Mexico. In 2021, we will mark 200 years of epic conflicts and grand adventures, larger than life personalities, and sweeping landscapes. Join us on an historic journey. The Santa Fe Trail lives on.
Find us on social media or santafetrail.org. Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on 3 main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery, and adventure, no matter which direction you go. We now have an IHOP, that brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people, just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun.
Well, right behind me is my favorite character and animated Christmas classic. This is Sam the Snowman, as a la Burl Ives with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. See if I can move one way. There's the little red nose. Um, I saw on line the other day that this actually premiered in 1964. And Michelle, you're just a baby, so you don't remember, but I do. I remember sitting on the sofa with my mama and watching um, the premiere of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It is still my favorite Christmas animation. We actually had snow that night. We had a lot of snow, and I can remember opening the door and scooping snow off the steps to make snow cream and watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So, in my little pajamas. So it was.
Deb, when I was growing up, the best night leading up to Christmas was always the night that they would show Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Frosty the Snowman, all one after the other. And the Grinch normally was shown on its own on a different night. And I grew up, I loved the Grinch, still is one of my favorites. But I, grew up watching Rudolph and Frosty, and then of course Charlie Brown Christmas. And so behind me, I actually have copies of the illustrated book, and these are actually copies from the 1930s and 1940s. the different variations on poor little Rudolph and that oh so bright nose.
Oh, so bright nose. Well, let's take a look back in the vaults at how Rudolph came to be such an iconic symbol for Christmas.
Perfect story for Frank, because this is about a fellow advertising genius, another advertising genius besides Frank. This is I tell you, we all have our favorite Christmas shows. Rudolph is mine. You know, I know it's Christmas when Rudolph comes on TV. So this is about this advertising connection to Rudolph. And I'm sure before you researched this story, you were familiar with
sure.
the elements of the story.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was, I'm not going to get ahead of the story, but Montgomery Ward, way back when
there were catalogs and people got catalogs, remember that, people?
But they wanted an unusual advertising gimmick for Christmas. So they gave it to the person who eventually wrote Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
And you know, I remember hearing, and I don't think that this is in the story, and I think that this is true. Well, Google that stuff, you know. And but when Gene Autry recorded Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the song, his record company, well, a lot of record companies didn't want to touch it.
Yeah, he didn't want to do it either.
And he didn't want to do it, but his wife liked it, and so. You keep Mama happy. So to keep his wife happy, he actually recorded the song. And of course, it became, I think, one of the best-selling Christmas songs of all time. And
well, next to White Christmas.
Of course. Written by Irving Berlin, and who was Jewish. And you know, White Christmas, when he wrote that song, it was like he thought of it as a gift to America. Just a
and Bing Crosby didn't want to do it either, and then it became his biggest hit. Anyway, let's see about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. For the real story behind Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, we turn to factcheckersnopes.com. Rudolph came to life in 1939 when the Chicago-based Montgomery Ward Company asked copywriter Robert L. May, who had a penchant for children's stories and limericks, to come up with a Christmas story they could give away in booklet form. Drawing in part on the tale of the ugly duckling and his own background, he was often taunted as a child for being shy, small, and slight. May settled on the idea of an underdog ostracized by the reindeer community because of his physical abnormality, a glowing red nose. He wrote Rudolph's story in verse as a series of rhyming couplets, testing it out on his 4-year-old daughter, Barbara, who was thrilled with Rudolph's story. However, May's boss was worried that a story featuring a red nose, an image associated with drinking and drunkards, was unsuitable for a Christmas tale. May responded by taking a friend from the company's art department to the Lincoln Park Zoo to sketch some deer. The illustrations of a red-nosed reindeer overcame the hesitancy of May's superiors, and the Rudolph story was approved. Montgomery Ward distributed 2.4 million copies of the Rudolph booklet in 1939, and millions more throughout the war, despite paper shortages. Since Rudolph had been a work-for-hire project, May received no royalties for his creation. Deeply in debt from the medical bills resulting from his wife's terminal illness, she died about the time May created Rudolph. May persuaded the company's president to turn the copyright over to him in January 1947, and May's financial security was assured. The Rudolph phenomenon really took off when May's brother-in-law, songwriter Johnny Marks, developed the lyrics and melody for Rudolph's song. Mark's musical version was recorded by cowboy crooner Gene Autry in 1949, sold 2 million copies that year, and went on to become one of the best-selling songs of all time, second only to White Christmas. A stop-action television special about Rudolph, narrated by Burl Ives, was first aired in 1964 and remains a popular perennial holiday favorite in the U.S. May died in 1976, comfortable in the life his reindeer creation had provided for him.
It's Christmas in Compton. where thousands of antique, Victorian, and themed ornaments adorn 200 trees throughout the Territorial Capitol Museum. Open Wednesday through Sunday, the exhibit runs through January 1st. Spend the day and experience all this small town has to offer, both historic sites, shops, food, and wine. Merry Christmas from historic Compton.
Howdy, I'm Seth Hayes, and welcome to my hometown, from then to now. Council Grove has a rich history as deep as the prairie tallgrass. Spend the day visiting 25 historic sites, or explore the unique shops and restaurants, or mosey out of town along the Santa Fe Trail. You all visit my hometown, Council Grove, in the heart of the Flint Hills.
Okay, looks like it's time for our tour. Welcome to the Fort Wallace Museum. Here at the museum, you're going to find some really interesting stuff, like our replica stagecoach from the Butterfield Overland Dispatch. We've got facades from the fort buildings. We've got an 1870s flag. There's a plesiosaur that was discovered locally. We've got the Ray pump organ collection. We're a little bitty place with a great big story, and we'd love to have you.
Welcome back to Around Kansas. I'm Michelle Martin, and I'm actually coming to you from Botanica in Wichita. And this is what you can see during the holiday season there.
It's beautiful. I'm Deb Goodrich, and behind me is, I would guess that's a dragon and all lit up. And that's at Topeka Zoo. Kayla Goodrich took this picture when she was taking the little Goodriches to the zoo. And oh, it's so cute. And I've seen so many cool photos from folks who've been to the Topeka Zoo lights this year. And of course, we've got the Botanica and the Topeka Zoo on here, but a lot of folks are doing that. A lot of folks have drive-through exhibits. I know Tark in Topeka always does a drive-through light show, and Noelle and the kids did that and said it was fantastic. So a lot of these, I think Botanica ends pretty soon, but some are up through the first of the year. So check your calendars, and especially, this week, Christmas week, there's going to be a lot of these that are still up. So yeah, take advantage.
Deb, Botanica actually started on November 16th, and it runs through January 1st.
Super.
And so when you go to Botanica, you need to actually pre-purchase a ticket and slot. Because what they're having are a limited number of times available each hour and each day. And so they're going ahead and trying to make sure that they don't overcrowd right now, not just because of COVID, but also, flu and all the other kinds of things that are going around right now too. So they're trying to watch out for everybody's health and safety. And so, but you can actually see, in the children's garden meadow, for example, they have over 360 poles with over 6,000 lights, and it's all set to music. In the carousel garden, they've got 36 moving head beam lights that dance up in the sky. They have a 25-foot Christmas tree, and they said that 25-foot Christmas tree has over 15,000 pixels of light. So they are not, they're really pulling out all the stops in Wichita at Botanica.
I think one of the highlights, if I've got my facts straight, at Topeka Zoo are Santa's reindeer. So you can actually see Santa's reindeer. So I don't know, you might not, Christmas Eve, they might be on duty then. So I'm not.
They might be a little busy.
Yeah, might be a little busy. So maybe go another night, but yeah, check out their schedule. And Topeka Zoo, I was one of the treasures when I moved to Topeka in 1992. It was just one of the treasures that people take their kids to over and over and over. And I've done that, with my kids and grandkids. And at Christmas, of course, it's so special with these exhibits, but then you have Boo at the Zoo for Halloween. and
Hmm.
just anytime you visit Topeka Zoo. So a zoo membership would still make a great Christmas present, folks. And now they've got the bears. They've just got all kinds of incredible exhibits there. And I knew Gary Clark, who is the zookeeper who made it the world famous Topeka Zoo, and was, oh my God, nobody like Gary. He was a legendary figure and just the sweetest and most fun human who ever existed, and led safaris to Africa and was just an amazing human. And he's left his mark all over that place. And I think Christmas is a really appropriate time to talk about it. It manifests Gary's spirit of generosity every way you turn. And that's what those bright lights make me think of. They make me think of Gary Clark's personality and his generous spirit, and it just glows all over the place. So that it just gives me a warm feeling to look at those lights and think about Gary's presence there.
Deb, also, you don't have to go to a place like Botanica or the Topeka Zoo to see great lights. A lot of our Kansas communities put up amazing lights in their downtown areas. And I'll tell you, there's no more magical than Fort Scott this time of year, when they put the lights up and the Christmas decorations downtown, right from the fort running down the main street and in the old business district. It's absolutely beautiful. In Pittsburgh, Kansas, Little City, Kansas has has great decorations out. But if you want to take a little more Wichita and see the lights at Botanica before Christmas, if you go before Christmas, another great place to go and see amazing lights is travel down to Bartlesville, visit our friends south of the border, and go out to Woolaroc. Woolaroc has its amazing light show. It's just this wonderland, this magical world of lights every year in the holiday season, and they have that in the evening. There's just a flat rate per car, or it may be just an adult child charge. But when you drive through, and they have everything from a mounted horseman and who's lit up in lights. You drive through and see all of the light displays. You can actually park the vehicle and you can get out and walk. You can go in and see the museum. You can see all the light displays that take you down to the historic lot Frank Phillips built. You can get chocolate and cookies. And I have to tell you, before I found out I couldn't have anything with gluten, Woolaroc's cookies are some of the best in the world. And I liked having the photo assignment of covering Wonderland of Lights, because I would get hot cider or hot chocolate and all of the Woollaroc cookies I could eat. And they are primo. But you can do that. And you can also take in their new Welcome Center, the Fraser Welcome Center. That is wonderful. It has a cafe, it's got grab and go, food items. It's just beautiful. And so you can even go down into Oklahoma and visit our sister state to the south and see some incredible lights.
You wrote a book about Woolaroc, didn't you?
I did. It was for Arcadia Publishing, and it was in the Images of America series, and it was all about Woolaroc. It's incredible history. It started as a lodge and wildlife kind of ranch and preserves by oil magnate Frank Phillips, and then he built a hangar for one of his airplanes, the Dole race from California to Hawaii and back. And so that hangar, was Frank Phillips collected Western art of all kinds, and made numerous buyings in the Southwest, acquiring art. And it became the core of what became the museum. The book talks about the Phillips family, lodge, the hangar, the museum that evolved out of it, and then the kinds of events that they held there at the lodge and museum over the years. And also the mausoleum for the Phillips family is there. It's Aunt Jane's final resting place. And yeah, you can you get a really great slice of history looking just at Willow Rock. But you can, like say, you can go to Wichita, spend a day, see the lights, drive on down to Willow Rock, take in the lights there. Gee, make yourself a big circle and come back up to Topeka before Christmas, because the Topeka Zoo lights end on Christmas. So you've got some lovely shows that you can take in with the kiddos.
Absolutely. Well, folks, it's been an incredible year, full of challenges and full of blessings, and we hope that wherever you are, that your Christmas season is full of light. So, wishing you a merry and bright Christmas wherever you are.
Merry Christmas all the way from the desert. I wish I were there in Kansas, taking the chilly temps and the beautiful lights with all of you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.